Hello there. I'm Paul Martin with Grizzly Creek Crossing Ministries. I want to just come to you today with a message of trusting God. How many of us truly put our trust in God with all of our worries and all of our problems? I can guarantee you that not a lot of us do. We think we do, but not a lot of us do. I want to just begin with putting your trust in God can be a very difficult thing at times. I know this. I have what I call my 2x4 moments. That's when I think I can handle a situation on my own. Oh, I got this one, God. I don't need to worry you about with this one. So you can usually guess how that turns out. Not good. But I know at those times, God really puts that on me to just hit my knees and put my trust in Him. And in my lifetime, I've been hit with enough 2x4s. I could probably build a pretty nice house, or even a nice barn for that matter, or both. But you just got to hit your knees and trust in God. As it says in Proverbs 3, verse 5 through 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. Trust in the Lord with all your heart." This means to take your worries and your problems to Him in prayer and to trust Him. Trust is to put one's confidence in someone. So why not put your trust in God? Trust with all your heart. Trust that He hears you and He knows what you're going through. Because believe me, He does know what you're going through. And He has laid that path straight for you. But all you got to do is trust with all your heart. And lean not on your own understanding. These are usually the 2x4 moments that I mentioned earlier. Lean not on your own understanding, but trusting in Him. He will guide you on a path, the path that He has laid straight for you. He has a plan for you. The problem is we become a society of self-sufficiency. We learn to get ourselves out of jams, and solve our own problems, and not trusting God. The problem with that is He has usually directed or permitted that path. And when we short circuit that test, that's not trusting God. We've also become a society too reliant on others. We have friends that can do things that we can't do, that can help us with this problem. But the problem with that is that we will not trust God. We'll trust them more than God, and then they become your crutch. And it says in Jeremiah 29, verse 11 through 13, God says to Jeremiah, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." You just have to trust in Him. It may not be a plan that you're ready for or one you're even expecting, but you need to trust that the path that He's leading you down is the right one for you. His plans may shut doors that you were not expecting to be shut. And if He does this, stop knocking. All that's going to accomplish for you is a sore hand. But if you knock long enough and loud enough, He may permit that door to be open, just so that He can show you that that isn't the path that you were supposed to go down. He may lead you down a path that is extremely uncomfortable and not easy to do, but believe me, He's going to be right there with you and help you through it. But you just have to trust Him. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. Most people's paths have a lot of twists and turns and stop signs and detours, but God will straighten out your path to get you from point A to point B easier. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. Acknowledging Him is to recognize Him through prayer. Give Him thanks. It is easy to acknowledge Him when things are good are happening to you, but it's during those bad times that it's very important to hit your knees and acknowledge Him in prayer. He has a reason for these bad times. It's called teachable moments. That's when God has the best opportunities to teach you something, if you are willing to listen. And that's the key here. If you are willing to listen. In Isaiah chapter 48, verse 17, it says, I am the Lord your God, who teaches you what is best for you, who directs you in the way you should go. It's during the bad times when people don't believe that God is with them. Believe me, that is farther from the truth than you realize. God is always with you. In Psalms chapter 139, verse 7 through 10, it says, Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, and if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. I heard a great song recently by Leona Lewis called Footprints in the Sand, about how He is always with you. Trust me, I'm not going to sing it for you. You do not want to hear that awful sound. But it says, you walked with me, footprints in the sand, and helped me understand where I'm going. You walked with me when I was alone, with so much unknown along the way. Then I heard you say, I promise you, I'm always there. When your heart is filled with sorrow and despair, I'll carry you when you need a friend. You'll find my footprints in the sand. Can you imagine you're walking along a beach and you're there by yourself and you look down and you see another set of footprints walking next to you? That's God walking with you. And you just have to trust in Him. He is always there with you and is always listening to you. A very good pastor that I really enjoy, named Chuck Swindoll, he's a prominent pastor down in Texas, shares a story of trusting God. He had a young couple that were members of his church that wanted to meet with him after the service one day. And at that time, they revealed that the wife had stage 4 cancer. Chuck was completely shocked at the encouraging manner as to which they were ministering to him. He was the one in tears, not them. But they were not scared or sad because they were trusting God. Trusting in what God was teaching them. And they knew that they were trusting in Him, that He was going to lead them down a path that was going to be difficult, but they were ready for it because they were trusting in Him. Something happened in their lives. They decided they were going to trust God with all their hearts and lean not on their own understanding. He asked the husband if he ever wondered what he was going to do if the worst happened and the cancer took his wife. The husband replied that he knew it was going to be difficult, but his greatest fear was what he was going to do without the greatest woman on earth. But he was trusting God to get them through it. God had a plan for her. He could intercede. He could heal her. He may heal her, and he may not. But this couple was trusting God and knew whatever happened, God would be right there with them through it all. You know, we become a really bad society of worrying. We become better at worrying than trusting God. Trust me, you will never outgrow it. It's just a part of the flesh. The only way you will get through it is to trust in Him. And the only way you will get through it is to put the worry on hold, put it aside, deliberately pushing it aside and saying, God, at this moment I rest in you and you alone. In Matthew 6, verse 34, Jesus said, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. When we worry, are we putting our trust in God? It could be something about money, a relationship, a job, or a number of other things. You know, an old friend once told me, you can worry about something for a long time, but how many times has that worry made it go away? By placing our trust in God, the things you are worrying about may or may not get resolved in the way that you would like for them to. God may have other plans for that situation. What are you worrying about today? Have you taken it to the Lord in prayer? And if not, why? If you haven't, are you really putting your trust in God? No. Believe me, you're not alone. Many people don't. I know that I've struggled with this in the past. I've had to learn that the only way to help me alleviate worrying so much is to hit my knees and take it to the Lord in prayer. The most precious times for me is when I have the opportunities to spend time in prayer, reading in His Word, and listening to Him. That's when I feel the most at peace. Now, there are times when things are completely out of your control. I'll give you an example of that, of completely out of your control, but trusting God. Our church on the ranch in Colorado Springs, we were meeting at the Flying W Ranch in Colorado Springs. That's where the church started. And things were going great with the church. And then came the Waldo Canyon fire. It swept through the community with ferocious speed, wiping out everything in its path in a short amount of time. And sure enough, our church was in its path. Now, a lot of people would say, well, what are you going to do now? But as a church community, we put our trust in God. And I'm happy to say we did not miss a single Sunday. That very next Sunday, we were gracious enough to have an opportunity to meet at a place called the Penrose Arena. It's a rodeo arena. Out on the arena was a flatbed trailer with our pastor, our worship team. We praised God like you would not believe. We actually were there for a while, then we moved to a local high school that was gracious enough to allow us to meet there for about a year. All this time, we're trusting in God, hoping that we can find a place for a permanent residence for our church. And sure enough, He brought us to the right building. But we were trusting God that He was going to lead our paths, and He was going to lead our church to where He wanted us. And He has. It's a great community. When you start trusting in God, I mean truly trusting in God, I want to give you a word of caution here though. When you start getting closer to Him through prayer and spending time in the Word, there's going to be a whole new level of attack coming from Satan. He doesn't want you getting closer to God. He's going to do everything he can to prevent that. He will put up obstacle after obstacle after obstacle to keep you from getting closer to God. It could be anything as simple as the TV. Oh, I'm going to go watch this show tonight. Or a phone call, the internet. You know, it could be a number of things, but you have to recognize this and take it to the Lord in prayer. He will distract you by any means necessary. I know this last year, Satan has really been working overtime on my wife and I, from things breaking to changing jobs to just difficult times. But we knew where this was coming from, so we put our trust in God and take it to the Lord in prayer and studying in the Word. We are on our path right now to defeating Satan. He's already defeated. But he's going to take as many people with him as he can before Jesus comes back. I spend a lot of time in prayer for guidance on specific issues or problems that are going on in my life. After I pray about it, I sit quietly and wait and listen. God will let you know in His own time what He needs for you to do, what needs to happen, and what direction He wants you to go. It may be through a particular scripture that He leads you to. It may be someone that you know or may not know that says something to you that strikes a chord with you. That's God speaking through that person to you. It may just be a circumstance that happens. God will let it be known in His own way and in His own time. Don't try to force an answer. There's a book that I recently read by author Dallas Willard called Hearing God. It has taught me that hearing God isn't always about hearing an audible voice. He communicates with us only when we trust in Him and are in communion with Him. To be in communion with Him is to have an intimate relationship with Him, spending time with Him in prayer and reading in His Word, and then, and only then, will we have a chance to hear God, if it is His will. A lot of people say that they've spent time praying about something, but God either isn't listening or doesn't care about their problems. That's because they aren't trusting God enough to understand that God always listens, but He's only going to respond if it is His will and on His own time. And as I said before, it may not be the answer that they're wanting or looking for, but it's going to be the answer that they get. Because it is God who provides and directs our paths, not you. We just have to trust God. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6, it says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time He may exalt you, Only God can determine that proper time, not us. To exalt you, to raise you up. I must say we must be patient in our listening for God. I know patience is something that I've always struggled with. I have a hard time with it because when I want an answer now. But I've learned to be patient with listening for God. If you're not getting an answer, it's either because God doesn't want you to go down that path, or He's waiting until the right time to reveal that path to you. Lean not on your own understanding. Be still and listen. We serve a mighty God, but how many of you here today are truly putting your trust in Him? How many of you here today are waiting for answers to your prayers but don't have the intimate relationship with Him that it takes to hear Him? So what I would like to ask you to do is make a commitment, not only to yourself but to God, to spend more time praying to Him, thanking Him, acknowledging Him. In the good times and the bad times, acknowledge Him. Spend more time reading in the Word, and then be still and listen to what God has to say to you. I want to thank you for listening to my message today. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and I will be talking to you real soon.